very best of luck. After 50 years of ridicule, denial and cover-up, is the real truth about alien abductions about to be revealed? Well, photos published last week claim to show UFOs being piloted by aliens. And some say this photo, and hundreds like it, is the best evidence yet that extraterrestrial life is out there. The man who published that picture is UFO investigator Mike Murray. He joins us now with the editor of Skeptic magazine, Professor Chris French. Welcome, both of you. Let's first of all discuss where these pictures came from. And they came from the Solar and Heliospheric Observatory, which is about 1 million miles from the Earth. It's called SOHO, launched by NASA and the European Space Agency in 1996 to observe the Sun. So that's where these pictures came from. What are they showing? What do we see there?
I'll let Mike answer this.
It's actually my fault. What it's actually showing, I think, for the first time is it looks like more like a structured craft, where photographs in the past have simply looked like lights, which the UFOs that are generally seen from the Earth are. There's something called Earth lights, which is usually something created by seismic activity. These are completely different, I believe. And the other point to make here is that, alas, we've got something which is taken by a dumb satellite, effectively, so there's no mankind intervention, so there can't be any falsification.
Well, we say that, but of course NASA haven't released those pictures. They were nicked surreptitiously off someone else's satellite.
No, you can get them in the public domain. You can actually find all these on the website.
Yeah, but NASA haven't actually released them, have they? But you went
ESA
to speak.
have.
Well, they have now.
Yeah, oh yeah, absolutely.
You went to speak to NASA about it,
yeah,
and you asked them some awkward questions. What were their responses?
Some of it was actually quite accurate in that certain of the photographs show a very bright light source, and coming from the light source are seemingly wings, and the so-called wings are a fabric of the way the camera operates. The light kind of spreads out along the CCD elements inside the camera, but there is still a bright light source there, and that was the part that they couldn't really answer what the bright light source was.
It all sort of went a bit quiet, didn't it? The more you pressed, the more... I mean, do you think it went quiet because they thought, oh, please, will you leave us alone? Or do you think it went quiet because they thought, oh, please don't ask us any more difficult questions?
Both. But I think the main reason it went quiet is every time they gave us an excuse and we went back to say, this doesn't match the picture.
They were saying that they could be comets, they could be meteorites, and you're saying, no, hang on a second, they actually change direction of flight, which means that they look like they're being steered.
That was one of the excuses. The other excuse, which is actually not a bad excuse, was that cosmic rays were hitting the camera. Now, if you ask anybody who manufactures CCDs, you'll find that's a very hard effect to get. They also said that the lights appear in one part of the screen, then disappear and never seen again. So we actually pointed out the frames that were involved, where you could actually see one passing the camera and moving away and then turning and going off to the right.
Professor French.
Sorry, can I just ask if you've ever seen a UFO yourself?
Yeah, that's how I got involved with it down in Warminster in the 60s and 70s. There were almost 15 to 20 reports of UFOs a week down there, just suddenly started. Yeah, I went down to see for myself.
How many did you see?
Well, over 12 years, 20-odd different lights, which is not many.
But you've got footage of them and pictures of them?
Only on still cameras, yeah.
OK.
And Chris French, Professor French, you actually say that it is extraordinary that all the pictures that we have of these things, they all seem to be quite blurry. They would never seem to have a really crystal clear picture. No windows.
Well, whenever we get a crystal clear picture of what looks like a UFO, it always turns out to be a hoax. Much more common are these kind of pictures we've got here, where, I mean, I must admit, to me, it doesn't look particularly like a structured craft. I mean, the question about why didn't NASA release these photographs if there's such great evidence is an obvious one. I mean, NASA would love to find evidence of extraterrestrial intelligence. Think of the funding implications. These guys need money. They're pouring a lot of effort into SETI, the search for extraterrestrial intelligence, but they're not relying on blurred pictures of alleged UFOs. They're using other techniques.
Oh, sorry, what other techniques?
They're using radio telescopes. They're listening out for radio signals from out there. They're using all kinds of other techniques as well. But why is it that if this really is such great evidence, it's not, if it is, it ought to be on the headlines of every major newspaper It's on page 17
Well, there
of
is
the
this,
Daily
there is
Star,
this
for
thought that,
goodness sake.
the conspiracy theorists would like to say, yeah, well, it would just cause mass global panic. You've got Winston Churchill in 1952 wanted some sort of investigation. Baroness Thatcher said you can't tell the people to someone who was investigating.
Allegedly.
Former White House Chief of Staff John Podesta worked with Clinton, called for 25-year-old documents to be declassified.
If you look at the history of this, if you look at the actual memo, the background to that memo, the famous memo that Churchill sent, he'd clearly heard something, and like any sensible leader of a country, I think the wording was something to the effect of, what's all this fuss about UFOs? And once he had a reply from his advisors, that was it. He was satisfied. I mean, allegations of cover-up are a great way of explaining away why you can't produce any really convincing evidence.
Why
because, of
have
course, the
pilots
conspirators
been-
are covering it all up,
Yes,
aren't
but
they?
why have
there's a-
pilots been banned from discussing funny sightings that they've had?
I don't think they've not been banned. I've spoken personally to many pilots who think they've seen things up there.
You
You were
raised your
rising, yes.
eyebrows then, Mike.
Rising an eyebrow.
It certainly probably isn't the case now, but certainly in the 50s and 60s, I can name the airlines and the people, and I should show you copies of the letters where they were actually told you will not speak of these incidents.
I mean,
And
allegedly,
it was very bad news for the careers if they did.
Yeah, I've heard
allegedly
that.
there have been lots of astronaut sightings that NASA have supposedly covered up. But again, you look at it on a case-by-case basis. You always find there's either it's a complete fabrication, it's a comment that's been taken out of context. It's whatever. This is the latest in a long line of people reading far too much into NASA photographs, from the face on Mars to...
I tell you something. You know the did man land on the moon? Why can't we see the American flag flying and the footprints in the dust? Our
There's,
telescopes
again,
are so good.
let's have a programme on it. I'll quite happily come on
yes.
and answer all those.
Fantastic.
I mean, the old fluttering flag one, if you want that one, then, I mean, basically that flag, you know, the idea is, why should the flag be fluttering? There's no...
No,
Yeah,
not
but where is
fluttering,
it?
You don't, yes.
You just can't see it, and the abandoned moon buggies and things. I don't see any photographs. Anyway, that's a whole other thing.
Russ Kelly is on the phone now, and he would disagree with you really quite stringently because he's been
Proper close
abducted.
encounter.
You say you've been abducted.
That's right, yeah. I've had quite a number of close encounters with these beings. I actually became a UFO investigator, researcher, because of my abduction experiences. And,
These are your pictures we're showing on the screen at the moment, Russ.
I don't know because I'm upstairs.
Yeah,
at the
no,
moment.
take it from me.
Oh, right.
We are doing.
Right.
And so where were you when the abduction took place?
The first one back in 1988, I was stood at a level crossing waiting for a train to go by, and I was hit with a beam of light from the sky. The train went past. I carried on my journey home, and I saw a ball of light in the sky. I thought, that's a little bit strange. Then the next one happened in more or less the same area. Me and my friend was on a motorbike. We had no interest in UFOs really at all. When a motorcycle club was more interested in bikes and going out and music, etc. And we both basically didn't know how we got home.
So you don't remember like being on a spaceship?
Oh
or
yeah,
anything?
that's the second encounter.
Right.
With something strange. Then I'll come up to today, 1991. Basically, I was in my bedroom when the wall turned black and these beings came out of the wall,
So
like shadows.
Yeah.
And it has to be asked, because there will be people watching this who you know, would be asking the same things. I mean, you hadn't been drinking, or you hadn't been taking anything at the
Medication?
time?
No.
Nothing
No,
like that?
I'm a teetotal, to be honest, and I always have been.
Okay. So the shadows came out of the wall.
That's right. Yeah.
And what did they do to you?
Well, basically, there was some kind of interaction, and I had quite a lot of...
What sort of interaction?
Well, I had all these images put into my actual mind. It seemed to be hundreds of images of all sorts of things. And then I could hear my parents, my mother coming upstairs, and then it just seemed to go back through went back through the wall. And my mother actually said, "Oh, were you talking to then?"
Mm. What about...
Did you have physical marks on you or anything?
I certainly have had, yeah. The one where I was actually sat at the level crossing, I had actual facial burns and burns on my hand and my neck, and I still suffered even today.
Really?
What do you say to that, Mike? I mean, you believe that there is life out there. Do you believe that they're visiting us and interacting?
I find it hard to take, I must admit. I find it very hard, but there's so many different sides to ufology that you really have to specialise. And there are people who specialise in abductions and do nothing else, and I think that's the best person to ask. I must admit, I've only become involved in any kind of abduction cases right on the edge. And whilst I must admit the people that were involved in that one seemed very sincere, I just find that very hard to take.
Chris, there must be life. There must be life out there.
Let me say right from the word go, if I had to bet money, I'd bet yes, there is. You know, I mean, the universe is a hell of a big place, and the chances are that intelligent life has developed out there. But the question is it visiting us on this regular basis? That's where the evidence is just so shaky. I mean, if we're talking about abductions, clearly people have very, very weird experiences, and I don't doubt, in most cases, I mean, there are definitely deliberate hoaxes, but most cases of alien alleged abductees, those people are sincere. They've really had strange experiences. The question is, how do we explain those experiences?
I asked Raj about this, our resident psychiatrist, and he said he does have a lot of clients who come to him who have had abductions, they say. And he says to them, well, next time, make sure you bring something back with you, like a spacesuit or a pen or something or other. Ashtray. And so, I mean, Russ, who was just on the phone telling us about his abductions, they're fascinating. And if it happens next time, could you bring something back, if it's possible? And it's just fascinating.
Can I make another suggestion? That these people kind of set up some kind of cameras within their bedrooms, which is where most abductions seem to take place. Let's get photographic evidence. Let's see something like this. But of course, we're always promised these things. We're always promised that we'll be sent the alien implants for analysis, but they never actually materialise.
But no cover-up. You say no cover-up.
I mean, there is definitely misinformation out there. I mean, people see strange lights around military establishments, and the military prefer to think it's UFOs than to admit that they're testing technology that they don't want you to know about yet. So, yes, there is misinformation, and there are also deliberate hoaxes, as I'm sure Mike will agree, and the whole thing gets very, very messy. But no deliberate cover-up in the sense that the ufologists mean.
All right.
Mike and Chris, thank you both very much. Cool, that stirred up a lot of people, I should think. OK, the number to call if you have anything to say about aliens is 0870 11 01 101. Perhaps you are an alien watching. Give us a call.